Rex Heuermann. I'm an architect. I'm an architectural consultant. I'm a troubleshooter. Born and raised on Long Island. Okay. Been working in Manhattan since 1987. And it's actually a cabinet maker's hammer.
The work is not done here, but this is a major, major step forward.
My reaction is, this is nuts. It's really, really crazy. You never know, you never know who your neighbors are, right?
Please note that this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share. Hello everyone and welcome back to another live stream with me, Giacalone. Today we look again at the Long Island serial killer case, otherwise known as the Gilgo Beach murders, and the suspect, Rex Heuermann. So if you haven't been following, I hope you'll check out the playlist that I've made for you, because we've done a lot of deep dives already. We've done Maptime and timelines and all sorts of things, document time, all of it that we normally do. So please do check it out. Welcome if you are new here though. I hope that you will consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss any notifications. For example, today we went live with a press conference right before this, which wasn't quite planned. I wasn't too sure exactly what time and where and what. So when we go live like that, you won't miss out if you do have that bell clicked. Jonathan says, wanting to tell you the simulation was incorrect. All bridges are completely light up, including the long... I know. It's just a flight simulator. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I mean, we also know that the Ocean Parkway had no street lights. Well, minimal to none, especially in that area. But it's just a flight simulator, and I wasn't there to show the lights. I was there to show the overview of the land. You know what I mean? But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who's emailing me lots of information. You guys are the best. Welcome to all my moderators, all my patrons. Patrons, you got a video from me today. I took you with me on a cycle and we went to go see a duck pond. So I hope you enjoyed that. And then you got all the notifications for these live streams we did now as well. So what we're going to do is I'm quickly going to go through what's life in prison, well, jail, been like for Rex Heuermann. Okay, we're going to look at a video that's from News 12, Long Island. So we'll look at that. We'll look at a Twitter update as well. Some cold cases that are being looked into now, where they're comparing Rex Heuermann's DNA to try to help solve these cold cases. And we're talking about Vegas, New Jersey, all over the place. Oh, yes. Okay, so we shall have a look at that. And then I've got a video to show you where, in fact, I will be flying that flight simulator indeed. Yes. Yes, I will. Okay, so I was doing that flight for you this afternoon. And I hope that you will enjoy it just to see what might it look like in that area. It's not perfect. It's a Microsoft flight simulator. It's not a satellite image or anything. They try to be as accurate as possible though, right? Okay, so let me put this here for you. They say, what's prison life like for Rex Heuermann? News 12 goes behind bars to get a glimpse. But I mean, I would assume it's jail, right? Because he's in jail now. When he goes to trial, if convicted, then he goes to prison. But let's have a look at this video right here. Okay, let me put the sound up so I'm sure you can hear it. There you go.
Exactly what Heuermann has been up to and who he's met with since his arrest for the murder of 3 Gilgo Beach victims. Here's Tara Rosenblum.
So right now we're just walking into one of the pods.
We are behind bars with Sheriff Errol Toulon Jr. at the Suffolk County Correctional Facility, where Rex Heuermann has been living since his bombshell arrest 1 month ago. How would you describe his mindset right now?
Well, after a month, clearly you see a change. He's become more acclimated to jail life. But, you know, he seems very convicted to stay to himself.
Although the mental health suicide watch that Heuermann was initially placed on has been lifted, Sheriff Toulon told us they are keeping the suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer under a less severe jail suicide.
Oh dear. And on the back of the press conference that we just watched, You better watch him. These type of guys, they want the last word. They want control. You need to watch them. They need to be on suicide watch, actually. Okay, let's carry on.
I'd watch.
When mental health staff had made that determination, that enabled us to remove the suicide vest that he was wearing, which you saw in his mugshot. Also, he's able to have sheets in his cell. He's able to have a razor to shave. So it wasn't like he's going to do something to himself, but we wanted to make sure by having an extra correction officer that we're really foolproof.
Right. I mean, everyone saw what happened to Jeffrey Epstein.
We're constantly reevaluating to make sure that Mr. Heuermann sees his day in court.
But for now, what Heuermann sees every day is a 60-square-foot cell.
Let's look at it. Ooh. The ogre is in there, you guys. Oh, yes. He's very tall. And how tall is he again? Because you guys work in 6 foot what? 6'4", right? I think it was 6'4" and like, I don't know, he said 250 pounds or sure. He's in this little cell. That must be quite a sight. But look at it. Okay, also thank you to everyone who's saying you're buying my books. I really appreciate it. Just know that yes, I was a swimmer, a competitive swimmer and an airline pilot, so I kind of write like the bullet points. It's not story time, it's more like manuals. It's like bullet point time. But I do narrate them all for you, so thank you so much. And thank you, Jet Black. Really appreciate it. You say Grizzly True Crime is my favorite YouTube channel. Grizzly True Crime Chat is my favorite too, with the best mods. Yes, we've got the best mods right here. Okay, so I just wanted to pause so you could take this all in.
So this is a typical cell.
Just like this one.
There's a plastic mirror screwed to the wall, sink, toilet, a desk, and then a bunk with the mattress.
Describe for me what he looked like when he was first getting introduced to this space.
He was either laying on his back or with his back against the wall, and really he slept a lot. Now, the last couple of times I've seen him, you know, he's sitting up on his bunk. He may be reading a book.
So you've seen a transformation.
Yes, you know, not only transformation, but the regimen of being inside of a correctional facility, because when Mr. Heuermann is leaving his cell area to go anywhere in our facility, we lock down the entire jail of any inmate movement.
For the most part, he says Heuermann doesn't move around the jail that often or spend a lot of time in this recreational area that he has access to throughout the day.
I mean, the good thing is it looks really depressing. It looks absolutely terrible. I know that he's innocent or proven guilty, so somebody's gonna come for me and say, how can you say that? He's innocent or... I know. I'm just saying it doesn't look great, hey? You don't want to end up there.
He's not really exercising, but just walking around.
What he does do, though, is meet with Catholic clergy for private prayer services once a week with 2 cameras rolling at all times.
He has requested it, and he seems like he's going to continue.
Other than that, we're told Heuermann has had little contact with the outside world, receiving only 2 visitors in the past month, his lawyer and one other person whose identity the sheriff will not release, except that it is a male and not a relative.
It wasn't a name I was familiar.
Damn. A male but not a relative. 2 people have visited him since he's been in jail. 1, his attorney, and 2, a male but not his relative. My mind is like, who do you think it is?
With until we did some research on the individual.
There are also phones like these right outside his cell.
He uses the phone maybe 2 or 3 times a day.
Other than using these blue phones here to call his lawyer and his wife, these calls are recorded, so who else is he calling?
I just know that he's making calls, but I don't know who he's making calls to.
And is he cordial to your staff?
He's respectful. He did inform my staff when he first came in that he would not be a problem.
You know, we don't know yet whether these will be separate trials for each of his alleged victims, but I guess the one thing that is certain is that Rex Heuermann could be here under your care for quite some time, possibly even years.
Yes, we've anticipated and maybe have prepared ourselves for maybe a 1 to 2 year engagement with Mr. Heuermann. The biggest thing for me is to make sure my staff isn't complacent and that we're diligent every single day.
Tara Rosenblum, News 12.
Damn, right? Okay. So we've got that. Rex Heuermann. So this is just a write-up of what we just saw. Now, let me quickly just see what's on X here, which is what Twitter's changed to. It's so weird to say like on X. Okay, we're looking, but still twitter.com. So basically here they say breaking. 34 minutes ago, just learned that the Las Vegas PD DNA lab will be conducting a direct comparison. Sorry, I'll zoom in for you. A direct comparison this week against Rex Heurmann's DNA and the DNA recovered, in the case of murdered New Jersey mom Victoria Camara. Results expected in 6 to 8 weeks. Ladybug, thank you so much. You say possibly his business partner? I mean, possibly. Possibly, yes. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. You guys are so lovely and loyal. You guys are like, I only watch this channel. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, I really appreciate you being here. And so it was also, where's that other clip? Breaking in my jailhouse interview with the Sheriff Toulon. It's a very French surname, huh? Toulon yesterday revealed alleged serial killer Rex Heuermann had 2 visitors, his lawyer and an unidentified man who is not a relative. He also meets weekly with a Catholic clergy. More details tonight. Okay, so that's what they said. And then there was this one video I wanted to show you.
Investigation into the Gilgo Beach murders today behind bars at the Suffolk County Correctional Facility. And let me show you where I'm at right now. We just asked to see a cell that is similar to the one that Rex Heuermann is being housed in. And this is the one we were given access to. You can see there's a bed, a mattress, a bookshelf. There's a small window where he has access to natural light. There's a desk, a toilet, a sink, a plastic mirror here for obvious reasons. I'm told he does not have any pictures hanging. He is just spending his time reading. He's got a few books. He purchased a pen and paper from the commissary. And if you walk outside, he is in an isolated unit. He is not, there are other cells next to him, but they are currently empty. He is being kept in protective custody. But what I noticed right away is, look right over there, television set. So he has access to a television about 17 or so hours a day. We asked if he's watching coverage of himself. Of course, they didn't have an answer for that on what he's watching, but these are phones that he has access to as well. And we are told that he has had several conversations with his lawyer. And those are conversations that are not monitored. They are, obviously there's attorney-client privilege, but right out here, at first they said he slept a lot and he kept to himself, but now he is making use. You can see here there's a recreational area, so we're told that he enjoys that area. He's getting more acclimated to prison life, and interestingly enough, he is meeting with a nun and a priest on a weekly basis and taking part in religious programming that is available to him. So yes, we are behind bars here if you're just joining us at the Suffolk County Correctional Facility, and we're going to have a lot more.
Suffolk County Correctional Facility. So that's what's happening there. This is Tara Rosenblum. So if you don't follow her on Twitter, you can. She is with, I think this is for News 12, right? Emmy winner investigative reporter. So we've got that. And because I'm going to show you quite a bit today, I'm not going to deep dive the cases that now are coming up. We'll do that in another episode, okay? Let's see what other cases could be, are being investigated as, are they connected to Rex Heuermann or not? I'm sure there's a lot. I'm sure there's more that we don't know about than those we do know about. But I really hope that those families will get justice too. Thank you, Spitfire, for the sticker. Really appreciate it. And man, you best believe someone like this, he just reminds me a lot of John Wayne Gacy in many ways. I know that BTK, Dennis Rader, said that he's like his clone. But he reminds me so much of John Wayne Gacy. And I think he's going to be quite manipulative in jail there. He'll fit right in, you know what I mean? Like, you're probably wanting special favors, like extra commissary. Who knows? So, we will have a look. I just quickly, before we dive into what I'm about to show you, I just quickly want to show you some map time here, just so that you can refresh your memory so that you know where the hell I'm flying around when I show you this footage that I've made for you now. And by flying around, I mean on a flight simulator, okay? So it's not, I'm not actually flying there. I'm not in New York. I wish I was. I really do. Yes, but what we're going to look at is this area, okay? This is Gilgo Beach, and this is where the victims were found. Doodle Mom, welcome to Grizzly Supporter. Okay, so if we look at Gilgo Beach here, Long Island, New York, Amber Costello's body was found here. The Gilgo 4 were the ones who found first when Shannon Gilbert went missing. And they were looking for her. They found Amber Costello's remains, Melissa Barthelemy, Maureen Brainard Barnes, and Megan Waterman. And so Rex Heuermann has been charged with 3 out of the 4 of the Gilgo 4 murders. So this is an area that will be like flying over. And then an unidentified Asian male was found over here. Jessica Taylor was found, her remains over here. And then Valerie Mack and Baby Doe. And they say, in this clip I'm going to play for you, the A&E producer, Josh Zeman, said that Baby Doe and Peaches are likely going to be identified very soon. Shannon Gilbert was last seen over here. And if we go this way, Peaches, her remains were found here. And then remember there was Fire Island Jane Doe, who was just recently identified. Fire Island Jane Doe. Karen Vergata. Yes. So we saw that as well. Okay. Now I'm just checking what you guys are saying. Okay. So that's what we'll be doing. So what I'm going to do on this flight simulator, it's pre-recorded for you so that we could just watch and listen. We're going to be listening to a Joseph Giacalone, hope I'm saying his surname right, former NYPD detective, speaking with the A&E producer, Josh Zeman. And their conversation is very interesting. I wanted to share it with you as well as like put two things together, right? So that we can watch something and listen at the same time. And then also, remember that date that Nikki Bass said she went on a date with Rex Heuermann in 2015, in the summer of 2015. And we know Rex's pattern seemed to have been summer months when he would strike, right? Joe Jersey, thank you so much for your sticker. And so, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm in the area. I can confirm anything you need about the area if you need. Please, can you drive around? Okay, but don't bother anyone. Would you the person with the drone, if there's someone with the drone footage, let me know. But don't bother the family. That's the only boundary there. Please don't bother them. Okay. So, lost my train of thought there. Damn it. Okay. What are we doing here with this flight simulator is I'm going from, I'm trying to think exactly how I did it, but from his house, and then I go towards the beach, and then we fly all along here just to see it aerially while we listen to things. Oh, I was saying that date that he went on in 2015, we're going to listen to a new interview that she's done. We've watched all of her interviews so far. Man, does she say some interesting things in there. Even mentioning the hammer. Oh, yes, the thing we suspect from him saying, and a cabinet maker's hammer. You remember that whole thing? If you don't, please check out the playlist. So we're going to be flying this way, and then we'll fly like this. And then what I do is I go over this bridge a little bit, turn around, and come back over this bridge so that you could see it. Okay? So that's what we're doing. Hope you're all ready for that. And after that, we're going to be reading through a Washington Post article that the A&E producer recommends we read, which is all about the why did it take so long to catch Rex Heuermann? Why, when the new task force was formed in 2022, suddenly then, within 1 month, they identified, Rex Heuermann, suspect. There he is. Lay low. Look at everything. All the cell phone data was taken into account. The green Chevy Avalanche. Everything. Why? Well, there was a lot of politics and corruption and things. So this article is something that he recommends we read through. And so I'm going to read it with you. Okay? So that's what we will be doing. So let me just pull up that video for you. Just give me 1 second, please. 1 moment, please, everyone. Let me show you like this. Okay. It's quite big. Just hold on 1 second. In the meantime, welcome. If you're only joining now, and if you're new, welcome to Grizzly True Crime. Okay, it should be this one. Here we go. Okay. So, before I get started with this, let me quickly show you like this. I'll probably have to move my head out of the way. Wait. No. Double click. There we go. Okay, we want it to be full screen and nice for you. So I've just got a drone going here. You can see the audio source is the channel. You can subscribe over there, Joseph Giacalone. And so you can go check it out. And I've linked it in the description box for you. All my sources are linked. So what I'm going to do is show you quickly here. This is a map that's just on this side. This green point here is where Rex Heuermann's house is. And the red arrow is us the whole time, okay? The red arrow is us, and later I think there's another little green point, which is Gilgo Beach. But don't worry, I will walk you through it. If there's any questions you have along the way, just let me know. But this is what we're going to watch right now, and it's 34 minutes long. So we're going to be watching and listening together, okay? Are you ready? Here we go.
Well, yeah, exactly, right? So the Long Island serial killer, unfortunately, has brought out all the old shows and stuff, but you were like one of the first, if not the first one to do the TV episode. You did 8 episodes on all kinds of cases, but you're really focusing on Long Island serial killer cases. Is that right?
Yeah, there was actually one Amy project that had been done before us, but our goal, really, it was like, why isn't this case being solved? It's so huge. There's so many bodies. You're so close to New York City. You would think, the police department would be on top of their game. And so that was a real impetus. Why wasn't it getting solved?
Okay. So
Sorry
our
about that,
introduction
guys.
to Twitter Spaces has turned into a bit of a disaster. Anyway, so we were talking. I said, it's taken a long time for this thing to finally get off. But tell me what your first impressions were about the press conference today.
Look, I think they've known about Karen Vergata for about 6 months now. They've been doing a whole bunch of work ever since, the task force was formed. They had information. This was going back to when we got all that new information about Peaches. Right. That's when they learned who Karen Vergata was. And everybody kind of thankfully didn't release that information. So we've known. And then the question is, are we going to get more information about Peaches? I think we'll find out about Peaches in 2 weeks. I think they've ID'd Peaches, and they've ID'd Baby Doe, Peaches' daughter.
So, are you listening? Because that's the point. The point is not to be too distracted by the flight. The flight is just so that we can watch something together, watch the area, while we listen very carefully. Peaches and Baby Doe are going to be likely identified very soon. At the time, when they released this episode, they said within 2 weeks, and it's been 10 days. So I'm waiting for that press conference. I am waiting. You let me know, you guys, if you see something, okay? So I'm not going to talk too much. Here and there, I'm going to interrupt just to make sure you don't miss important things. And as you can see, we're flying southward, okay, towards Gilgo Beach.
And, I think the next big question is, when are we going to find out who the identity is of Asian male?
Right, yeah, Peaches. Now, we know that the FBI was asking for help in the Peaches case in Alabama a few months ago, right? I mean,
yeah.
They put out that. So we knew that they were on to that one. But this one was unexpected, right? I thought it was going to be the fourth piece of the Gilgo 4, to be honest with you. That's what my thought was at first. And I even tweeted about that, I was a little disappointed.
Yeah. Well, I had heard from Fox News, from a guy at Fox News, that they were going to release Karen's name, and then there's a web sleuther out there, a guy named Murder Inc., who's really smart, and he found a way to kind of, I don't know, let's just say that he figured out a way to track what some of the police are doing, and so he figured out who Fire Island Jane Doe was, being Karen Vergata. So thankfully, he didn't make it public, and he let law enforcement do what it needed to do. And law enforcement has been doing a great job. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the amount of information that comes out. But then you turn around and ask yourself, why has this taken so long? And that's just what's so frustrating.
Right. And someone, if you were part of that, somebody tweeted at me, if you recall, what took so long? And the best answer I can give is it just shows you what happens when you have a motivated law enforcement agency with good leadership, what can actually happen.
Yeah. And I don't know if everybody listening here has read that Washington Post article. If they haven't, you have to read this Washington Post article. Came out August 1st. Gilgo Beach killer hunt slowed by infighting between prosecutors and police. And that was also written by Gus Garcia Roberts.
You hear how he recommends it. You need to read it. So we're going to read that after this, okay? After this whole video clip and everything, we're going to read that article together.
Who wrote the book, Jimmy the King, which is about Burke. So, Gus has been on top of this from the get-go. And look, everybody, we all know it's so easy to play Monday morning quarterback with a huge case like this. Yet at the same time, there is no doubt that what Spoda and Burke did is problematic. We don't know how far it goes. I think the other day I called Joe and I said, Joe, did you see, Tim Sini actively said that they actively obstructed justice in this case. I mean, for Tim Sini, former DA, to say that Spoda and Burke actively obstructed justice is, in my eyes, a huge thing. And I think that's going to lead to some ramifications down the line.
No, absolutely. And Tim Sini's also the guy that said that he didn't know who was in charge of the case at the end either. So.
Look, Joe, as you know, this case was plagued from the start. In this article, it mentions what we covered so long ago in 2011, Spoda and Dormer, the former police chief, having a public spat. between each other about whether there's one serial killer or two.
Right.
So, this case has been plagued by politics from the get-go. And again, just so everybody knows, I'm so pro law enforcement, but we need to remind everybody that in Suffolk County, there's three political parties. There is the Republicans, there's the Democrats, and then there's the police. The police have their own super PAC. Why? They're one of the second highest paid police departments in the United States. So there's a vested interest in controlling the police department. I don't know exactly what that means in terms of affecting this case. Again, we're talking pro law enforcement, but we're also talking about politics, and especially in this case.
Yeah, politics, unfortunately, ruined the start of this investigation, including what we thought maybe a long time ago where, unfortunately, the lack of information and lack of investigation started the pure speculation on who was involved and what was involved, including a couple of lawyers out there. So, yeah, here we are. Here we have an arrest now for Rex Heuermann, and, responsible maybe for at least three. I think they'll tie the fourth one relatively soon. I think they're just waiting for the DNA test to come back. I mean, we all could have agreed at the very beginning that the Gilgo Four were all killed by the same person, right? I mean, that's the consensus I think we all can agree with.
Yes.
The question now comes down to the other victims. Now, as you know as well as I do, that they're going to be a lot harder to put together in this case.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up, which I think you and I discussed post appearing on Nancy Grace, and I thought that this was really smart. This almost kind of broke it open for me. It's something, in fact, that you said, which was if we're dealing with the same killer, and one reason why we may be dealing with the same killer, the obvious question is, why is there two different MOs, right? And one answer could be, Joe, what you said the other day, which was the first set of murders were all sex workers, but they were probably all streetwalkers, and these are individuals who got in his car. And as a result, he took forensic countermeasures to shield himself by dismembering bodies, etc. Versus the Gilgo Beach 4, if you look at the time period, it's far later. And at that point, sex work had changed. It had all gone online. So for a guy who's 59 years old, or 50 at the time, he might have thought that he was getting away with it. So as a result, he didn't have to go in and dismember victims. He didn't have to do all this forensic countermeasures to protect himself. And that's why we're dealing with two different MOs. It has to do with sex work.
So, are you listening? I'm checking on you. Are you concentrating? I'm listening intently again. So their speculation is, this is the producer of the A&E special, it's called Killing Season. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. So what they're saying is, if it's the same killer that's responsible for all those victims found on Gilgo Beach and Tobay Beach, Jones Beach, that whole stretch, right? Why would the MO then change? And the speculation that they're making would be, well, maybe because, the way that he would connect with these sex workers changed. Maybe it used to be like street walkers, and then it became digital with Craigslist and all of that. And remember, in 2010, Craigslist actually banned the ads section, the adult entertainment ads section. So that would also change again, I would speculate, his MO, or make it much more difficult for him. So really, what did he do between 2010 and 2023 then? Okay, so now that little green dot was around where Rex's house was, so I was just hovering over there a little bit. Can't see the exact house, and it's not the exact same color because this is a Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm really just showing you the area. You could relax, just listen. It's just so that you can listen nicely. And yes, there's a lot of water, and I know there's speculation out there that he would have taken the bodies out on a boat. I still personally think people like this are quite lazy and might just want to drive past on Ocean Parkway. That makes the most sense to me, especially the way he would have been driving, and then the suspect then dropping the bodies off on the right-hand side there, in the bramble. Okay, let's continue on.
Moving online.
Exactly, right? So that's the thing I've been floating since the very beginning. That, and unfortunately that fight that you talk about between Dormer and Spoder, I think, puts a damper on tying anybody to all those cases eventually, because as well as I do, a defense attorney is going to bring up front and foremost in the case and saying that this is basically a cabal of information coming against my client and all the other stuff that you're going to hear. But it's very plausible, and I think, listen, I said that from the beginning, and I'm going to stick to it.
You should, because when I heard you say it, it totally changed something for me. But actually, I have a question for you, Joe. I'm worried that the defense attorney, even in Rex's case, yes, I know they have DNA, but he say that all this infighting and all this questions about one serial killer or two the whole thing with Burke and Spoda, can't he say that all of this has prejudiced the case or ruined the case, and all of this is a problem?
Oh, absolutely. And what I'm also concerned about is that the district attorney has been doing the circuit now. He's been going around and doing a lot of interviews. I mean, he spent an hour with Newsday doing an interview. I think these things all come back and haunt him, so to speak, in regards to when the time comes to pick a jury, about how, poisoning the jury pool and everything else that goes along with it. So I am concerned about that, and I wish...
So I hope that you know who's talking. It's Josh Zeman, the producer, the director of the A&E special The Killing Season, as well as Joseph Giacalone, who is a retired NYPD sergeant and the author of 2 books, The Criminal Investigative Function, 4th edition, and The Cold Case Handbook. And he said, and a connoisseur of cop things on his Twitter page. So you can find him on Twitter as well, at Joe Giacalone, spelled the way that it's up there in the corner. That's where this audio is coming from, his channel. It was an interview, and I just wanted to share it with you guys, and at the same time just offer you some visuals. Okay, so let's continue to watch and listen.
I understand he wants to take a victory lap, whatever, but the victory hasn't really happened yet.
Now, I will say that, part of the reason that we did The Killing Season, it wasn't just the fact that they hadn't solved the case, but it was the fact that they weren't saying anything to the public. And that allowed for everybody to go online, web sleuth the comments in Newsday, and start this crazy, conspiracy theories about everything. So I love the fact that they are finally talking and being forthright and being and communicating, but I guess that is a double-edged sword.
Well, it is. I mean, listen, compared to what we used to have, this is like an unbelievable amount of, talk about information overload, right? So, no, listen, I'm happy that there's some transparency, and I'm really happy the way the new leadership is going. I just like to see them scale it back, right? There's no need to do an hour interview and that kind of thing. I mean, after the case is over, and if you win, tell us all about it at that point. I could spend 2 or 3 hours.
Now, there was something that the previous person...
I have to pause just to tell you that you can see on the map above my head, we are the red triangle, and there's a little red waypoint dot that I've got there, and that's approximately where the Gilgo 4 were found. So that's where we're flying now. You'll see as we pass it, it's actually around here. So if this is the road, it's around this side, and he would be driving from this side, right? So somewhere over here, and no, the foliage isn't quite correct either. Remember, it's Microsoft Flight Simulator. Wish they would get it perfect. Should have sent them a letter. It's bramble. But somewhere around here. So I'm just flying you over that area, okay? Okay. Don't know what's pinging at me, but off we go.
Asked a question about Karen Vergata. And she mentioned Rex's marriage. I think she said that it was like a year after his second marriage.
Right.
I have to say, I keep shouting this from the rooftops. Look at Rex's marriages. Look at his relationships. We know that he went out for the GB4 based upon when his wife was away. So we know that the whole, whether it's because he finally had the house to himself or what have you, I think a lot of his behavior is based upon his relationships. And we all know that serial murders, for whatever reason, stressors happen, and then they react from stressors. So when this first broke and we were all going in and looking at his first marriage, his second marriage, there is... I forget the name of the woman who was found on Meadowbrook Parkway. She was petite, Carmen Vargas. She was petite. She was found bound. She was found on Meadowbrook Parkway. She was found like a mile from where Rex was living and about to get married to his first wife. So I think the marriage thing, if you really want to kind of get into it, that is going to be a huge key in terms of tracking his whereabouts and tracking who he killed and why.
It's a great point, all right? So there's so many different working parts in this. And yes, I mean, they have to figure out what that triggering moment is in his life and what he was going through. Like you said, we know that happens with lots of individuals who do this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's kind of interesting and see how this...
Jonathan saying, can you tell which side the bodies were found? I can tell again. We've told it before. So it's not on the ocean side. It's on the bay side. So if one would be driving down here, they were found on this side. The Gilgo 4 found on this side. All right.
Has developed. I mean, like we said earlier, we've been talking about this case for years, even before Killing Season, and the information that we've gotten in the last couple of weeks has trumped everything that we saw in the last 11 or 12 years. So
absolutely.
And I think we're just learning about Rex now. I think they're really going to get involved in a lot of different things in his background. And I know everybody's interested right now. All of a sudden, we want to tie Atlantic City. We want to tie this. We want to. My God, let's just focus in on one thing at a time here.
Look, Atlantic City, There's no connection to Atlantic
I don't
City.
believe so either.
You know, and even I was the one who did the documentary, and I know there's no connection. The point of the documentary was like everybody in West Sleuth was saying, you got to look at these 4 girls, and then you got to look at these 4 girls, and then these 4 girls. The point was that we all want to prescribe all these murderers, right, to one super duper serial killer who's traveling the country, and the real horror is that it's not true. That there's just hundreds of dudes out there who, you know, commit this violence against women, against sex workers on a daily basis. So the point of the documentary was to kind of like to push that up in some ways, but then to like spread the larger message that this is happening all over the country. I mean, geez, look at Albuquerque. You know, it's just horrific what happened in Albuquerque. Right. So it's not connected, by the way, for those who are wondering like, well, why isn't it connected? I mean, those 4 women were taken literally out of the Golden Key Motel.
Well, this is about the Atlantic City eastbound strangler that they're referring to. I've got a separate episode for you on the playlist where I spoke with criminal profiler John Kelly about it, where he was also saying that he doesn't think that that would be connected at all. He was actually out there in the area looking at it and then offering us, you know, much later now, recently, on this channel, his opinion on it. And they're also saying, and so of course is the district attorney and the investigators, the police commissioner, they don't think that the Atlantic City eastbound strangler victims are connected to the Long Island serial killer victims, the Gilgo Beach ones, the Gilgo 4, right? So that is what they're talking about. And sometimes I zoom forward. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going faster ahead, and then I'm just going over that bridge, which is between somewhere, it's eight or so miles long, okay? So we're just going to look over there because I think Rex would have gone from his house eastward and then down over the bridge. So we're doing it kind of the other way around, but then I do turn around and come back. So he would have gone eastward and down across the bridge and then driving on that road, Ocean Parkway, to then, you know, drop the bodies in the bramble there with the burlap. Very scary thought. Okay, so continuing on, and for MB Inc., welcome to the chat. And you were asking how many wives has he had? 2. So if any of you missed the initial episodes, we really did a deep dive on who is Rex Heuermann. Like, where does he come from? Where did he grow up? When was he born? Who's his mom? Who's his dad? Does he have siblings? When was he married? Which years? When do they think that the killings may have started? All of that we've looked at. So please make sure that you check that out or refresh yourself if you haven't checked it out before.
Were all exited out of the back of the Golden Key Motel. It was one hotel. It was a crazy drug hotel. Here we're talking about Rex, who's like a stalker, and it's very much a different thing. I was going back to the killing season, and there's an interview with Melissa Cann, you know, and Melissa Cann even said it. She's like, I believe that Maureen was stalked. And I couldn't believe she like nailed it right from the beginning. I think all these women, except for maybe Amber Lynn Costello, were stalked. Amber Lynn Costello, I originally thought she was stalked, but then I think maybe Joe was you or somebody else turned me on to the idea that when he got wrapped up in the ruse, he got so pissed off that he decided, you know, to act out.
Right.
And that's why he came back the next day.
And he was also able to convince, I believe it was 2 of the girls, to leave their cell phone home the night that they disappeared too.
Yeah, well, you know, he paid him a lot of money to do so.
Right.
You
So,
know?
I mean...
And yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Josh.
Well, no, I was wondering, like, first he had the 2 cell phones of the original 2 girls, and then he wanted to leave those girls home. So at some point he must have realized, okay, they're pinging. They can figure out what I'm doing by pinging. But, you know, he was so, you know, we're talking about Amanda, you know, the girl Amanda who was called, and why would he risk calling her? And speaking to Amanda's parents, one of the things that they told me so often was that, is it Megan? Not Megan. I'm sorry. I'm just blanking on her name. Melissa had a mouth on her. That's what her family said all the time. They're like, oh my God. They're like, I can't even imagine what she must have said to him to push him to be so angry that he goes and then calls Amanda. So I thought that was very interesting as well.
Yeah, no, definitely something.
Are you guys able to follow the map and know where we're at or not? Do you need a reminder? Or are we good? Maybe I can just... let's just do it like this. Where is that map? Just hold on 1 second. I'll just show you. I don't want you guys to feel like lost or what's happening. So just hold on 1 second and I'll quickly show you. So here's what I'm doing, just so that you know again. We flew this way and I went over here. Oak Beach is where Shannon Gilbert was last seen. And yeah, I'm not really discussing what their family attorney said because it's horrible. My word. The way he talks about Asa, Ellerup, oh my goodness. Anyway, so we're going over this bridge here now, just flying over there. And the reason I did that is because I would speculate if Rex's house was here, you know, people initially said he would have driven this way and then gone like this and it would be to, you know, bury, well, not even bury, just drop off the bodies. They weren't even buried in a shallow grave. They were wrapped in burlap and then, the Gilgo 4 at least, 3 out of the 4. And just dropped here in the bramble on the side of the road. Not far from the road either. I always have to convert, I think it's 6 meters, which I think was somewhere like 30 feet, less than 30 feet away from the road. So then I was thinking, well, if it's on that side of the road, maybe he drove rather this way around. And I spoke to a few locals there that live in Long Island, and they say, yeah, that would make more sense that he would actually drive. And remember, his storage unit was also here in Amityville, but he would drive this way around, let's say, whichever way it cuts through, and down over here, which is also more isolated, and then turn here and go there. So that's what we're going to do. We're flying over here now, and then I'm going to turn around and fly us back over here and back this way. That's what we're doing, okay? Just so you know. Heel hier, dank je wel. Are you from the Netherlands? Thank you so much. Okay, so let's continue on with what we're doing here. There we go.
Triggered this guy in during all those things. But one question I always had about these phone calls, right, when they were tracing him into Manhattan, did they record any of those phone calls? I mean,
no.
Yeah, they didn't. And
They did not.
I can't understand for the life of me why that wasn't. I mean, they had this thing going and they didn't do it. I don't understand.
Well, so yeah, and that came up too in the show. Basically, you know, one thing is the Maine Police Department, right, or Buffalo, like those guys were kind of on it, and so they had set up for Amanda to record the phone call, but it for whatever reason they couldn't get the proper information. I don't think they could get the proper authority with which to record the phone calls, but they were trying, and they were trying to do it.
I'm just interrupting every now and then because you guys maybe are not aware of some of the things that they might be talking about. If you've been following the case closely, you will be. So they're talking about Melissa Barthélemy, one of the Gilgo 4's, one of the victim's sisters, was actually taunted by the killer. And he said a lot of things. We went over that as well before, but that's what they're talking about right now.
You know, under the radar, by the way.
Right.
But it ended up not happening.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, talk about a lost opportunity there, too, in that whole aspect of it. But, I mean, when you think about how everything came together basically in a year and a half, and I think they actually had some of this information probably within the first few weeks, and they just need to exploit it. And you just have to kind of shake your head and say, why? Right? Why?
So for many of you who probably don't know on the phone call, I haven't made this public, but Dave Schaller told us the same thing about the avalanche. We have in our footage, we went back, and he told us, he said, I didn't see what happened the night that Amber disappeared. And then later on down in the interview, he follows it up. He's like, but there was this one dude who was stalking her. He's huge. And he said, I just reviewed some of the information yesterday. 6'9", 300 pounds. He's a monster. And he drove a green avalanche. So we have the information too. Now, so we missed it. Now you might say, well, it's not your job. You're not the police. But still, you know, at this point, we thought we were getting pretty close. So
And what can we learn from that? Is that no amount of information nothing is too small. Because in 2010, they knew about this ogre guy, this huge guy driving a green Chevy Avalanche. And if you remember the probable cause affidavit, how did they start, like even narrowing down an area? Was with that green Chevy Avalanche tip. Because Amber Lynn Costello's roommate, David Schaller, actually saw Rex Heuermann, encountered him. Amber had apparently locked herself in a bathroom because Rex was being abusive. And so he sped off in his green Chevy Avalanche. And lo and behold, that's how they narrowed in on that area. Who would own that? Where is it? Remember in 2015, Rex actually gave that car to his brother. But yes, that tip was so critical.
We missed it because we didn't think that the stalker was related to the guy who took her. Because the guy who took her would be covering his tracks so much rather than the stalker who they had met, who they had run the ruse on, who had been in the house. Like, if you're trying not to get caught and you're doing all this stuff, telling people leave their burner phones at home, what have you, blah, 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 why would you show yourself? Or, like, why would you go back to that victim even though both of the guys in the house had seen who you were? And that would be one reason, because he was so pissed that they ran the scam that he decided to throw caution to the wind and snatch her and make her suffer.
Exactly. I mean, geez. So yeah, I mean, so here, if this is Dave Schaller, you said.
Yeah, this was Dave Schaller. He told us this information.
Right, and if he told you that information, then more than likely he told Suffolk County this information too, or something very similar to it. So
he definitely told Suffolk County, without a doubt. Reading that.
Man, you see, Suffolk County also missed that one about the green Chevy Avalanche. Tower of Naphtali says the beach area seems the worst location for a body. But remember, it was in the marsh, in the bramble. So it was actually a really good location. It's the best location. It's dark. I mean, this is showing, around sunset. If I set it to 3-ish in the morning, it's completely pitch black. We can't see a thing. So I just set it around sunset so that you can generally see what it might look like in the area as it gets darker. But yeah, it was actually a really vulnerable area, which is why it's even speculated there could be more than one killer. Also, Lieutenant Peter Pranzo said RH probably headed east from his house, which is what I was showing you guys on the map now, right? With the pre-wrapped bodies, made a U-turn on Ocean Parkway, heading back west and dumping the bodies on the north side of the parkway. That's what I was showing you on the map. But what's interesting that Lieutenant Peter Pranzo is saying there is pre-wrapped the bodies. So maybe then he could have, it's speculated, murdered the victims at home. And when you listen to the interview that we're also going to be listening to right after this with Nikki Bass, who apparently went on a date with Rex Heuermann in 2015, she also said that he actually wanted her to initially come straight to his house. And remember, every summer, Rex's family traveled, and he seemed to stay behind from what we know. So if he wanted Nikki Bass to come straight to his house, ooh, that's quite the red flag. That's quite the red flag. So we don't have any confirmation of where he murdered the victims. We know some of where he picked them up, and we know of where he disposed of the bodies, but we do not know where exactly the murders were committed. There was a medical examiner on site at the storage facility, so that was interesting as well, because it could indicate that there were human remains there, and who knows what they find in that house. We shall see. Okay, yeah, Charles says might have dumped lots more off the bridge, which is also something I was thinking, but locals have said there's so many fishermen there, they don't think so, because then they would have popped up or whatever, right? So I'm not too sure about that either, but I mean, this bridge is, at nighttime, it would be, like 3 in the morning, so there's lights now, okay, on this bridge. The simulator doesn't show it, but it'll be so isolated and so easy to do because, for example, John Wayne Gacy chucked bodies off a bridge too, So, yeah. Okay, so let's continue on.
Washington Post article and seeing that it was more than just like, oh, fuck, we missed the important clue. Like, there's something more going on there. Meaning, like, it doesn't matter if that information might have not been investigated, because we don't know that it even would have went further outside of the police department. We don't know if Burke would have squashed it. We don't know if Spoda would have squashed it, for whatever reason.
Yeah, like I said, there's just so many characters at the beginning of this case, right? And how many people got their fingers pointed at them. But we have phone records now, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out during this investigation.
I wonder whether or not Suffolk County is going to air all its dirty laundry. I don't think so, because that dirty laundry goes pretty high. But, I think Ray Tierney is so squeaky clean in a great way that he's just going to kind of do what he's doing and kind of get this case solved so that we can finally close the door.
I agree, and it's also not his political party, which I think kind of was a little bit of an obstacle back then too. Right?
That is unless someone trusts.
So what I'm doing now, that's what I was showing. If he goes if we look at this map here, from his house, he's up there, right? If he goes eastward and then over this bridge to go south and then turns on Ocean Parkway, we'll do that. I momentarily go a little too far south just to Fire Island, and then I'll take us back to Ocean Parkway on this flight. But this is more about listening to the information and keeping it visually interesting for you. That's what I try to do.
Intrepid filmmakers or documentarians decide to go back and really try and expose what may have gone on in Long Island.
Oh boy, yeah, that would be interesting, right? For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about it. That's definitely another 8 seasons there, maybe 80 by the time you're done with that. So just before we wrap this up, tell everybody where they can see the Killing Season again if they haven't seen it or they want to see it again.
Yeah, of course. You can see it on Amazon Prime. You can see it on Hulu, and I think you can see it on A&E TV. And Joe, I feel like we barely got even started, so we should do another one.
Well, let's do it. I mean, we had a lot of people show up. I was shocked for the first one, and even though we had a couple of little glitches in the beginning, it actually worked out pretty well.
Yeah. Let's do another one, and hopefully we'll have some more new information, because I think we haven't even gotten into Shannon. My God.
Yeah, and think of...
shows exactly how dangerous it can be to work at.
Okay, sorry if that drone as a pause that is making you dizzy at all. Sorry about that. So now we're going to listen to the interview that Nikki Bass recently did with Anjanette Levy from Law and Crime Network's Sidebar. Really good interview. Listen to the info. That's what we're doing now as we're flying southward again towards Fire Island here. And then after that, I go down to Fire Island, and then I go back up here to get back on Ocean Parkway so that we can fly again to where, that's how I think he would have driven. So I think the way we're going to fly now is the way that Rex, or the suspect, would have driven. Okay. Yes, so Peter Pranzo says, agree, G. Opinions and speculations at this point. Law enforcement not giving much about evidence collected as yet, as expected. Exactly. Yes, to protect the investigation and all of that. Exactly. Very good. And after this, so hang in there for that, we're going to read through the Washington Post article, which is fairly long, but I would like to read through it with you, which is what Josh Zeman from the A&E Killing Season, the director of that, he recommended that article. So we're going to check it out, okay? So, yes. Okay, let's check it out.
As an escort. Nikki Bass worked as an escort several years ago, and in the time she worked as an escort, she said there was only one date that scared her. She says that date was with Rex Heuermann, the man accused of murdering 3 women who worked as escorts. Heuermann remains behind bars in the Suffolk County Jail, where he's being held without bond. He's accused of murdering 3 petite escorts, Melissa Barthélemy, Amber Costello, and Megan Waterman. The district attorney says Heuermann is the prime suspect in the murder of Maureen Brainerd Barnes. Heuermann has said through his attorney that he is innocent, but the DA says DNA and cell phone records connects him to the victims and the crimes.
Joining me to discuss Rex Heuermann is someone who actually went on a date with him. She is Nikki Bass. She is a hairstylist and a makeup artist and a former escort. Nikki, welcome to Sidebar. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Nikki, when did you first realize that Rex Heuermann was somebody that you had encountered some time ago?
So he's the only date I ever went on where I was scared, so I never forgot it. And for the last 10 years, I've told dozens of people that I swear I sat down and had dinner with the Gilgo beach killer, and people thought I was crazy. And once he was arrested, my friend recognized his picture because I showed it to her before the date and said, you know, he's an architect in Manhattan. And she remembered it, and she was like, oh my God, it was him. And I knew it was him. I knew it was him.
Was this soon after he was arrested, like right afterwards?
So he got arrested. I have, you know, kids, so I watch more kid shows than I get to the news these days. But once the story broke, I had texted her and I said, hey, you should go check out the news. The Gilgo beach killer was arrested. Go look at him. And she went and turned it on, and right away she was like, oh my God, it's him.
How did this date get arranged? Was it on Backpage? Was it on Craigslist?
So I had back pages, Seeking, Sugar Daddies. I had so many different pages with ads with a Google generated number that you can contact me on. So I'm not sure which one he contacted me through. I tried reaching out to one of the sites and actually asking if they could pull the messages between us on that now deleted account, you know, and they wouldn't do it because I wasn't the owner of his account.
So law enforcement, you know, just so the viewers and listeners know, they can subpoena that information, but you can't get that information.
Yeah, and not only...
I'm just fiddling now. As you can see, this is pre-recorded, but I was just fiddling so that you could see, okay, that's it in daylight, broad daylight, and then I go again to the sunset-ish time. It was just getting a little bit dark. We couldn't really see very well. But I didn't edit this out or anything. I just kept it in there.
That, because I was on so many sites with the generated number, there's no way for me to tell you with absolute certainty which one he contacted me through.
So you think it was 10 or 11 years ago? You know, so that...
It was summer of 2015.
Summer of 2015.
Yes.
So when he reaches out to you, he calls you on the number. It's a Google-generated number, you said.
And then we texted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so you guys texted over the Google-generated number. Do you remember what he said, or was it just like, hey, I'd like to meet up with you?
Initially, it was, hey, I'd like to meet up with you. Then it was, he wanted me to go directly to his house in Massapequa. And when I tell you I'm like the most locationally challenged person on earth, I can live somewhere for 5 years, and I still need to GPS getting home. So I was very unfamiliar with Massapequa. And I said to him, I don't want to go directly to your house. I don't know the area. I don't have friends there. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if we met in a public local place near me. And if I'm comfortable, sure, I'll come back to your place.
But he wanted you to come to his home.
He wanted me to come directly to his home.
He wanted her to go directly to his home. That is so scary. In the summer months of 2015. Like, that's according to his MO from what we know so far, right? I know he's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Based on what we know so far about the suspect. Whoa. And if Nikki Bass went on a date with him in the summer of 2015, and he's like, nope, come directly to the house. She's like, no, don't feel comfortable to do that. I think she gets a lot of credit for following her gut instinct all the way. Just like, whoa, I don't want to meet with him. Let's meet in a public place. And then even when she was there, she called a friend when she felt uncomfortable, to pick her up, to wait outside for her. Because if she hadn't done that, you may have shoved her into the car or something, Okay, so continuing on.
Didn't want to meet at a public restaurant.
Knowing what you know now, because the police are saying the dates he would go on with the women that he's accused of murdering happened when his wife was out of town. So does that freak you out, kind of thinking about that in hindsight?
No, what freaks me out in hindsight is thinking that this man sat across from me bragging because he knew I was in such a vulnerable position in my life that I wouldn't go to the cops because, one, I probably wouldn't be believed, or two, I'd probably be arrested. But I think that's what freaks me out the most, is that he may have put hypotheticals or said, he or what he thought, but it was somebody who had done it and been there describing those crimes, and I think that's what scared me the most.
So tell me about the date. Tell me exactly where you met in public and what happened from there, if you don't mind.
So we didn't meet at his car. I know a lot of people were like, did you see what kind of car he was driving? No. So he met me directly in front of the restaurant, the steam room in Port Jeff. We walked in, we grabbed a seat, we ordered drinks. He was surprised that I don't drink alcohol. I don't know why that's such a surprising thing to people. And he ordered his drink. We ordered some food. I don't remember what he got, but I know I got salmon and rice because I was allergic to shellfish. And we started talking. And everything seemed normal, very basic, like, generic chatter that you would use, when you're first meeting a person, first date. And then switched to, he asked if I was interested in true crime. And at that point, it still wasn't weird for me. I actually got excited because I am a true crime fanatic. Like, I could quote very weird, random things from serial killers or know facts that very few people know. Like, very, very heavily involved in, the true crime scene. But even though I'm a fan and I'm involved, I have empathy for the victims. The way he described things wasn't like the point of view of somebody who, had empathy for the victims. So basically, like, when he talked about the other killers and their victims and different things like that, he talked about it like a true crime buff. He talked about it the way I would, or you would, or any other person would. It was when we got to him saying, have you heard of the Gilgo Beach murders? And I said, yes, I've heard of the Gilgo Beach murders. And I'm from Long Island, we all have. And that's when he started talking about it. He sat up straighter. He had like this smirk on his face. It was almost like he was like excited to talk about it. Like, I get to talk about it now. This is great.
What did he say about the Gilgo Beach murders?
So he asked me if I thought Shannon Gilbert, that Jersey City girl, was connected. I said yeah. And he said, yeah, I do too. And
I wonder if that would just be him talking, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Shannon Gilbert is connected to Rex Heuermann. But I know there's a lot of speculation there. It's quite a sensitive topic, actually. The police commissioner, the district attorney, the investigators are like, horrible accident. I know that's a huge debate in that case. And that case, Shannon Gilbert, is the case that started it all. They were looking for her. And then they just discovered 10 other bodies? I mean, that is so shocking. And then later they found her. So there's all of that. But if he's like, do you think that one from Oak Beach, that Shannon Gilbert is connected? And Nikki Bass says, she says, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I think so too. You know, so maybe he's just making conversation. I don't know. I'm just saying. Interesting. Let's continue to listen.
Then another thing he said was, how do you think they get rid of the bodies without going noticed? And I said, I don't know. I've never been to the area, ever. I don't know the access points. I don't know anything about it. And he said, well, it's very dark and desolate. And then he goes, you know, what if they treaded through the marsh? And I don't know if he meant in one of those big rubber suits walking through it with camouflage bags, or if he meant he took a small boat with no light, or what he meant by that. But that was one hypothetical. And the other he gave was, well, a cop could easily do it without anyone bothering him. Turn his lights on, park, put a cone up. No one's going to bother him.
Damn. What if he treaded through the marsh? Yep. Yes, what if he did? And this was from 2015 when she went on this date with him. Summer of 2015. Whoa, 8 years later, this dude's arrested, and some of her friends are apparently like, oh my word. That is the guy you went on a date with? Anyway, so the thing is, if he said, well, a cop could do it, I wouldn't be surprised if he had, you know, the lights needed, or like the cone, or whatever the hell it is, because there's actually quite a lot of serial killers who've done that. They pretend to be cops. They got the badge, the uniform, the whole thing. Quite a few of them have done that, which is, whew, John Wayne Gacy loved to do that. So, yes, and Edmund Kemper used to hang out with all the cops too. So that was interesting.
So what happens after that part of the discussion? Did you think this is just a little too creepy? It's a little too descriptive? I'm out.
Whoa. Son is Bliss says, I recognize him and I believe I met him from a dating app. My story is different. If you would like to email me, grizzlytruecrime@gmail.com. I can keep you anonymous if you like. We could pre-record something. You can let me know what you don't want out there or anything like that. Contact me, let me know. Okay? So let's continue to listen here.
Out of here, or what happened?
So I tried to be polite. I actually stayed through the whole thing. And I remember him saying, it's up to 10 victims now, right? And I said, I think so. I wish I could describe it. Like, I wish there was a word for it. But he seemed like somebody who was reliving it and enjoying it, like almost like mentally orgasmic. Like later on, he was going to get to reveal the truth to me that all along it was him. Like, he was building up to it at the dinner, and almost like it was a game for him. It was funny. Like, the way he talked about the victims was like, well, they were just escorts, they were just prostitutes, they were just whores. And then he'd be like, but don't worry, I don't think of you that way. I know you have aspirations and hopes and dreams. And, you know, I feel like he did that to all the victims, but, like, how dare you, you know? My biggest reason for coming on is people are like, oh, she wants 15 minutes of fame or this or that, and it's not that. It's these women are being dehumanized for a job that they did, and I want people to realize that you can end up in a really vulnerable situation where you have no other options but that. And that doesn't change it. They had hopes and dreams and aspirations. Like I got the chance to become a mother. I got the chance to become a really talented hairstylist and makeup artist. I was given that chance because I survived.
Exactly. And also, Amy Lee says, hang on, 2015? It wasn't done then, was it? No. The other murders were in 2010. Actually, 2007 to 2010. But could date as far back as 1996. So 2015, nobody was watching Rex. We don't know what he did between 2010 and 2023. This is one thing that we're hearing of. Damn.
These women had that taken away from them because he thought that he had the right to do that. And that's my biggest thing is I want people to put a face to these women that isn't just an escort. I want them to see that these women, if they had gotten a chance, probably would have gotten out and lived their dreams too.
And I think that's very important. I think that they are dehumanized, I agree with you, by some people. And ultimately, by the person who took their lives. Did he say to you in your discussions how he believed the women were killed?
I know he said strangulation and hammer. I know he said, I feel like...
Did you hear that? That's probably what she didn't want to share the first time. In those first round of interviews, she said there's a few things that he said that she hadn't heard before. Because she'd followed the case very closely. And she was like, whoa, this is getting so creepy right now. Like, he's talking about how they were killed, strangulation, and a hammer. Did you hear it? Whoa, if he said that, oh damn.
A hammer would be real quick and easy. Said usually it'll take one time. As if hitting them once with the hammer in the head.
So I have one tool that's pretty much used in almost every job. And it's actually a cabinet maker's hammer.
Okay, cabinet maker hammer. Okay.
It is persuasive enough when I need to persuade something.
Not someone.
Something. And it always yields excellent results. Yeah. And at the end of the project, whatever piece of furniture or what I'm working on, it always helps it come out beautifully.
Okay, great. So you would be kind of that kind of hammer for your business? That's what you're saying? If that doesn't exist, that's what you would be?
Sometimes I have to be the heavy framing hammer.
The heavy framing hammer.
Other times I'm the lightweight hammer just to nudge things along.
Would usually do the trick. And you know, his size and his weight, I could imagine that kind of force would be, at one time would be enough. I said, you know, and I think also other sick things go on, like cutting fingers off or toes, just a lot, you know, torture in small ways. I feel like he's an animal who's been slowly building up. And, you know, you don't just kill for 10 years and suddenly get caught. This man's been traveling for a very long time. He's smart, he's calculating, he's cunning, he knows what he's doing. There are a lot more women connected to Rex Heuermann than just who he's charged with. And I think in the future, we're going to see that.
What happened after all of this discussion? And you said you're polite. You stayed through the dinner.
So he asked if I was going to come home with him. And at that point, I had a bad feeling in my stomach. I was scared. I was thinking I might have to order that weird drink from the bartender to get me out of here. And I ended up saying to him, you know, it's late. I don't know Mass.
I just want to interject there quickly. When she said she thought maybe she's going to have to order that weird drink or that specific drink right from the bar to like get me out of here. I think it's called an angel shot from what I know. So obviously we know the distress signal that's normally for DV distress signal, but if someone does this, you just never know. Call 911 or call the manager or do something if they do that. But I think if somebody goes to, do you guys know what it's called? I think it's called an angel shot is what I've heard. To be like, there's a problem. Like, can you intervene, call the cops, do something, right? Okay.
The Piqua, I don't want to drive there and then have to drive home that late and that tired. Maybe another time. And he was like, no. Like, leave your car here. You would take my car. Why would we take two cars? That's stupid. Like, let's just save gas. Like, very insistent that I took my car and left it in the parking lot and went into his car. And in hindsight, I think it's because he didn't want to be on traffic cameras having to get rid of a girl's car.
So how did things end? I mean, did he pay you at all, or did you just say, you know, I think I'm going to go home? How did things wrap up?
I didn't get paid. I said, you know, thank you it was nice meeting you, but I don't think this is going to work out. And I had texted a friend and had them meet me in the parking lot because I was scared. And I told Rex, you know, I have somebody meeting me here just to make sure I get home okay. Because I feel like if he didn't know that information, he might have been planning to go after me in the parking lot for all I know. He was terrifying. So I got up. He gave me that firm handshake again. And we walked out and my friend waved to me. And you could tell he was very visually agitated. He was annoyed he did all that work and I wasn't going with him. Like you could definitely see the agitation within him, but I was just glad to get out of there.
When he introduced himself to you, how did he introduce himself?
Online we had fake names. I couldn't even tell you what at this point. But when we met, I said, hi, my real name's Nikki. It's nice to meet you. Something along those lines. And he said Rex. And that was it. But I knew he was an architect from Manhattan before I even went on the date with him.
So you left. Never heard from him again, I assume, or did you ever hear from him again?
I deleted accounts. I blocked numbers. I made it where it was impossible for him to find me again because I did not want that encounter. Everything in my...
Literally. She didn't ever forget that, according to what she's saying, because it was so scary. She said it was her scariest client ever. So she didn't ever forget him, and she was telling her friends all about him all these years, right? And also, K80 did too, said sadists get off on messing with people's heads. Yeah, so imagine, I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, okay, we'll go for dinner. And they're like, so, have you heard about the Gilgo Beach murders? And reliving all that, and then suddenly being like, ta-da, it's me. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised if he did that to some of the victims. Like, guess what? It's me. And, yeah, all her red flags were set off. And also, someone was saying earlier that we don't know exactly how the victims were murdered. No, we don't exactly yet. They did say violent homicide. There's been, they initially, through all these years, said asphyxiation. So it could be a combination of what Nikki is saying here. But we don't know that right now. Okay.
Body told me that I needed to get away from that man.
But he originally wanted you to come to his home.
Yeah. And when I tell you, I've met men, you know, I never felt that for any other man ever. I never felt that kind of fear except for with him. And that's why I remember it so vividly, is because I was so scared. I feel like you don't forget that kind of fear.
When did you stop? When did you stop this line of work? Was it shortly after that? Did you think I have to really do something else, or do you remember?
The system kind of had me screwed for a little while there. I had a few years after where I couldn't get out of. I danced, I worked at strip clubs, things like that in nature, but I didn't do sex work as an escort anymore. I kind of got scared out of it, but I was working strip clubs and still in the sex work industry. It took either 8 to 10 years of my felony being that old for me to be able to finally get accepted back into a school and start making a career and a life for myself.
So, Nikki, have you contacted the Suffolk County Police Department? Have they interviewed you at all about this interaction you had with Rex?
So they didn't, reach out to me at all for a while. It took up until last week to finally reach out to me. And I set up an appointment to go there, but I have a newborn and other kids, and I was so exhausted. I ended up passing out. And, while my daughter napped, I ended up napping too, and I missed it. And I called, and we're going to reschedule it for probably late this week or next week to go in and have an interview. But I ruined that. I slept right through it. I was exhausted.
Was there, or do you have any final thoughts about this? I can't imagine realizing I went to dinner with somebody who is accused of something so awful. I mean, that had to just be really chilling.
It's not a new realization. This is something I've been telling people for years. So for me, this isn't a new discovery. This is something I've known. It's just it's the validation of knowing my instincts were right. That feels good. But otherwise, I think that, I could have been another victim had I made a different choice.
Well, I think that we're all glad that you had such good instincts and you trusted your gut. They always say trust your gut. And you did. Nikki, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it, and we hope you'll come back another time.
I would love to.
I reached out to Suffolk County Police and asked whether detectives plan to interview Nikki Bass about her experience. A spokesperson told me the department does not comment on who detectives have or have not interviewed. However, the spokesperson said if Nikki Bass had an encounter with the suspect and wants to tell her story, she can contact the task force to schedule an interview.
Okay, so that's it. That's it for the plight. Now we've got that one article to go through still, and then we're done for today. So let's get that, which was recommended to us earlier from listening to Josh and Joe. Josh is Josh Zeman, the director of the A&E special, The Killing Season. He recommended we read this one. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. We will do this together. It's quite long. Wish my voice box luck. You could sit back and enjoy. I'll be reading this to you. All right. Okay. So, I'm just seeing some of your comments here quickly. Okay. So, we continue on. Gilgo Beach killer hunt slowed by infighting between prosecutors. It's actually a topic I wanted to touch on for a while. I'm glad there's like one place now. a lot in this article by Alexandra Heel and Gus Garcia Roberts from August 1st, 2023. Massapequa Park, New York. A decade after the discovery of 11 bodies near Gilgo Beach. Hold on. I want to make it nice for you. Wait. We'll start again. How's that? A decade after the discovery of 11 bodies near Gilgo Beach sparked the search for one of America's most elusive serial killers, a Long Island District Attorney's Office turned its attention to an aging former police officer. Newly equipped with advanced technology, the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office analyzed old cell phone data to hone in on a shrinking list of suspects who had lived in one sleepy neighborhood not far from the shore. Chief among them, the former officer, whose initials matched those on a belt. That's interesting. Chief among them, the former officer, whose initials matched those on a belt used to bind one of the victims. By 2021, excitement grew among prosecutors that they were on the verge of finally closing the case. But there was a problem. The homicide detectives chasing the lead were bordering on mutiny. Prosecutors believed the detectives refused to follow orders and clashed with federal partners, multiple high-level law enforcement officials familiar with the case. Said. Detectives, meanwhile, felt that the district attorney at the time, Tim Sini, was forcing them to investigate leads they had already ruled out while ratcheting up pressure to solve the case before his 2021 re-election bid. The tension grew so high that, at Sini's urging, the case's longtime lead detective was removed. Amid that squabbling, a decade-old witness tip concerning the model of a pickup truck linked to the suspected killer went ignored. Last month, under the new district attorney who unseated Sini, that tip finally led to the arrest of another suspect who lived blocks away from the ex-officer, Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old architect who is charged with 3 of the murders and under suspicion for another. The previously unreported recent infighting between prosecutors and detectives illustrates how official missteps fueled years of false turns and dysfunction as the infamous killing spree remained unsolved. The Washington Post found through a review of records and interviews with more than 20 legal, law enforcement, and political insiders familiar with the case, many of whom spoke on the condition of anonymity. That's my worst word. Anonymity. I can never say it, I'm sorry. Anonymously, okay, because they were, if you listen to my audiobook, you know I recorded it about 20 times. Okay, because they were not authorized to discuss the case or feared retaliation. The investigation was hampered by political battles, deep-seated local resistance to federal investigators, and apparently apathy toward sex worker victims. Sini said in a statement that he sought to remove the lead detective, Patrick Portela, because it became increasingly clear that he was not willing to effectively collaborate, including by refusing to share information with the FBI. We did hear from the police commissioner that the FBI was initially reluctant to work with them when they asked, right? They were like, not again, we don't want to, not from our experience. Yes, okay, but luckily they did. Sini said that he was met with fierce resistance from within the police department when he initially advocated for the detective's removal and noted that investigators under his successor solved the case in 18 months without Portella's involvement. Multiple former high-level law enforcement officials supported that Portela was removed due to complaints from FBI officials, but others disputed it, and none would speak on the record. The Suffolk County Police Department and the FBI declined to comment. Portela, who retired last year, declined to comment. Among current and former elected officials and investigators in this affluent, insular county of 1.5 million residents, which has one of the highest paid police forces in the nation, initial relief and elation at Heurmann's arrest has given way to finger-pointing and deflection as new information has cast national scrutiny on why it took so long to apprehend a suspect. They could have caught this guy a decade ago, said Phil Boyle, a former New York state senator whose district included the serial killer deposition site. They say dumping ground. Some are suggesting we use a new word. I've gotten suggestions. Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney, who oversaw the task force that arrested Heuermann, said that the investigation was hindered during its early years due to a lot of dysfunction among the leadership and not a great relationship between the DA and the federal authorities. He declined to comment on the clash between his predecessor and homicide detectives. I like this district attorney. I think he's going to be so good. He said he's going to try the case himself, right? The cost of the investigation's lost years is still unknown. Heuermann, prosecutor said, continued to contact sex workers as recently as this year. He was still buying burner phones and things. We saw that from the probable cause affidavit. Investigators in multiple jurisdictions are exploring whether Heuermann can be linked to other unsolved murders, standard practice when an alleged serial killer is apprehended. Heuermann has pleaded not guilty. His lawyer, Michael Brown, declined to comment. Steve Cohen, an attorney for the family of one of the victims, described the long delay in the case as grueling for loved ones. It's been an incredibly harsh ordeal for the family, beyond that which you can even imagine. Oh man. The victims, from the beginning, when a woman disappeared in May 2010, running toward the salty thickets near Gilgo Beach, where 10 other bodies or sets of remains would ultimately be found, the case suffered from apparent missteps. These included a lack of urgency by police officers to probe the disappearance of sex workers, according to lawyers for the families of victims. Shannon Gilbert, 23, was last seen alive by residents of the gated Long Island community of Oak Beach, having fled screaming She fled screaming from the house of a man who was paying for her sexual services. According to Lost Girls, Robert Kolker's book, which I'm still listening to. If you guys are on Patreon, follow me there. You know that I tell you, like, how am I going to watch this A&E special? It's so long. And I did it all. Okay, I watched all of it. And now I'm busy with this audiobook. I think I've still got like 5.5 hours to go. But I'm working through it. And the LISK podcast as well, which I would recommend. Very, very good. So much detail. Okay, so according to Lost Girls, Robert Kolker's book on the then unsolved serial killings, it took months for Suffolk County Police to connect a 911 call from Gilbert the night she disappeared to a missing persons report filed by her family in New Jersey, and even longer to seek surveillance footage, which by then had been taped over. It took so long to release that 911 call. We recently looked at interviews that the police commissioner and the district attorney did, and they were like, part of their strategy to rebuild public trust was release that 911 call, which is actually when I started covering the case, which was in 2022, because I was like, oh my word, after all this time they're releasing that call. You know, I'd been wondering about this case for a long time. I traveled to New York quite a lot, and I was just like, what is this case? Like, why? So when they released that call, I'm like, oh my word, the mysterious call is released. So, yes, that was part of their strategy. And then they say, 7 months after Gilbert vanished, when a police dog caught a scent several miles west, 4 bodies were discovered in the scratchy shrubs and reeds that separate a desolate highway from the sand. All of the women were white and petite and wrapped in burlap. Not all 3 out of 4. According to the probable cause affidavit, but yes. None was Gilbert. The woman who became... Also, I just want to interject here quickly. Some people say with my accent, it sounds like I'm saying woman like a singular person, but I'm saying it in my South African accent. Women would be like weird to me. So I'm just speaking in my normal South African accent, okay? We've got an international audience here. I mean multiple, as you can see. So, working on it. Okay, so they say none of them was Gilbert. The women, who became known as the Gilgo 4, were soon identified as Melissa Barthélemy, 24, Megan Waterman, 22, Maureen Brainard Barnes, 25, and Amberlynn Costello, 27. All had advertised escort services on Craigslist or other sites. In the coming months, Suffolk County Police and officers in neighboring Nassau County would find the remains of 6 more people along Ocean Parkway, some dating back to the 1990s. 3 were later identified as Jessica Taylor, 20, Valerie Mack, 24, and Karen Vergada, 34. The rest remain unidentified. Gilbert's skeletal remains were pulled from a marsh in December of 2011. The case sparked national headlines about a serial killer on the loose, along with a cottage industry of media, including the best-selling book, a Netflix drama, and multiple podcasts. Hey, and YouTube. But early investigators telegraphed a lack of alarm about the case. When asked at a public meeting in 2011 whether kids should be afraid to go out at night, Dominic Varone, who was chief of detectives, referred to the victims' status as sex workers. He called it a consolation that the murderer wasn't selecting citizens at large, he's selecting from a pool. Ew, bro. No, that's horrible. This statement and the underlying attitude it betrays demonstrate a sad truth about how law enforcement handles crimes against sex workers, differently than they would if the victim were not engaged in sex work, said Ariella Moskowitz, communications director of the advocacy group Decriminalize Sex Work. A lost lead. The county's internecine Don't know that one either. But politics invaded the investigation from the start. In 2011, Thomas Spota and Richard Dormer, then the district attorney and police commissioner, respectively, publicly bickered about whether they believed there was one or more killers. Oh man. There was all this fighting. It's like almost like a macho show, you know what I mean? Fighting with each other. Come on. And a pivotal lead, one that would much later crack the case, was apparently mishandled. According to a bail application prosecutors filed following Heurmann's arrest, witnesses gave police a detailed description of a man who had visited Costello, who's Amberlynn Costello, right? One of the 4 women whose bodies were found by police in 2010, shortly before her disappearance. The witness reports in the document describe him as an ogre. Always smile at that, can't help it. It's like, he's an ogre. Oh man, okay, standing more than 6 feet 4 inches tall and driving a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche. Tierney, the district attorney, confirmed in an interview that police had obtained the witness descriptions of the suspect's appearance and his truck around the time Costello's body was found in December of 2010. Oh my word. 3 homicide investigators who worked on the case at the time provided little clarity on why the tip appears to not have been chased down. One of them, a supervisor who oversaw the case starting in 2011, said that he was not made aware of the witness statements from the year earlier, which he called inexcusable and beyond weird. It raises questions about the adequacy of the initial investigation and whether a full court press was done. Eugene O'Donnell, a professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and former NYPD officer and New York prosecutor, said of the lost statements. Very important statements. He said it cast doubt on whether the victims received the kind of investigation that they deserved. We're about halfway now through this article. Flawed new leader. Oh man, there's James Burke. Have you guys researched about this guy? Okay, in 2012, James Burke took over as chief of the 2,500 officer police department and inherited the Gilgo Beach case. Burke's nearly 4-year tenure, which ended in disgrace as he pleaded guilty to assaulting a prisoner and conspiring to cover it up, brought new dysfunction to the case. Earlier in his career, Burke was transferred from a street post after Internal Affairs Bureau investigators found he had an illicit sexual relationship with a felon in his precinct previously convicted of crimes including prostitution. Burke acknowledged the relationship but claimed he didn't know about the woman's long criminal history. Records in that case show that investigators probed Burke's interactions with at least one other sex worker in his precinct who said that Burke took her to a motel. But she said Burke just drank beer while she slept, and the IAB made no findings involving her. In a separate case, the IAB investigated whether Burke was involved in a prostitution ring, allegations he called absolutely false and which the IAB found to be unsubstantiated, records show. For John Ray, an attorney representing the families of 2 of the women found on the beaches, Burke's alleged history with sex workers conflicted with the case placed under his purview. So here's this guy with this predilection for sex workers investigating the murder of sex workers, Ray said. You don't bring the robber to come in and investigate robberies. Burke did not respond to a request for comment made through his lawyer. Burke also instilled a deep distrust of federal agencies, his colleagues said. We all hated the feds. Well, that's not helpful for the case, said former Lieutenant James Hickey, one of Burke's closest confidants in the department, later testified. Loki, welcome to Grizzly supporter. Okay, serial killer investigations are typically aided by federal authorities, but Burke and Spota instead took steps to keep out the FBI, according to Cine, who said he reviewed a report in the case file in which detectives stated that they'd been barred from sharing case information with the FBI's BAU, the Behavioral Analysis Unit, known for profiling serial killers. Spota has denied blocking the FBI, saying that federal agents previously assisted Suffolk investigators in the case before Burke took office, but that they were turned away in 2012 because their work was deemed duplicative by local authorities. According to the bail application, the 4 women Heurmann is accused of murdering each had contact with a person using an unregistered or burner phone shortly before their disappearances. In 2011, before Burke became chief, the federal agents started an analysis of related cell site records, Tierney said. That report, completed in 2012, first suggested that the killer lived in Massapequa Park and commuted to Midtown Manhattan. Like, damn. They zoned in on him, right? But local authorities then failed to narrow down the field of suspects, according to Cini and other law enforcement officials familiar with the case. That included not performing dumps of nearby cell towers, checking them for all phone activity during relevant periods. It's so important in every case. Even like the one we are following, the Rachel Morin case. Very important. The cell phone tower dumps. Okay, the first thing I thought about was the fact that tower dumps would have been a great investigative tool, said Larry Daniel, a forensic expert who has testified about cell site data in criminal cases. Burke's posture against federal authorities only intensified after December 14th of 2012, when the chief and his detectives beat up a shackled suspect who stole a duffel bag containing sex toys and PORN, I'm saying that for YouTube, not because I don't talk like an adult, from Burke's truck, according to later indictments and court testimony. Federal prosecutors described a criminal conspiracy that was all-consuming for several of the top officials in the district attorney's office and police departments as the feds pursued Burke, ultimately resulting in the 2016 conviction of Burke. Apparently, he also, this is allegedly, it's speculation, he also had snuff films in the duffel bag. That's a scary thing. Okay, and so they say Spoda and another former top prosecutor were later convicted of helping the cover-up. No police work is getting done, Prosecutor Lara Trainer-Scat said in the court of the top law enforcement officials in Suffolk County during this period. They're spending the day protecting Jimmy Burke. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what we're doing now is just reading through this article so that we understand the history, what happened before, what went wrong, what was the distraction. That's what we're doing now. So if you're only joining now, welcome. Okay, police and prosecutors clash. Cini, then a 35-year-old former federal prosecutor, was appointed police commissioner in late 2015. 2 years later, he was elected district attorney after Spoda was indicted. In both positions, Cini said he sought to revive the Gilgo Beach case that Burke and Spoda had left in disarray. But Cini's efforts would soon be hampered by more internal conflict. Cini attempted to re-involve the FBI in the case. His office recruited experts in technical investigations and bought expensive high-tech equipment to vacuum up DNA and reduce the area where cell phone data suggested their suspect resided. By 2021, Cini said they had whittled the pool of homes where the killer may have lived from around 1,250 to 200. Basic vetting of those residents produced what Cini called a large sheet of possible suspects. But investigating each of those possible suspects required the police department's homicide squad, including the detective, esteemed by his colleagues for an encyclopedic knowledge of the case dating back years. Portela was a Burke-era appointee to the case, having been put on the investigation in 2013. He worked the case out of the Gilgo room, packed with filing cabinets and boxes from the investigation. Okay. When the previous lead detective on the case retired in late 2015, around when Cini became commissioner, Portela took over the lead role. Cini said that Portela was kept on, alongside new detectives and FBI agents, because of his institutional knowledge. But led by Portela, the homicide detectives on the case clashed with Cini and Howard Master, a Yale-educated former federal prosecutor, who Cini put in charge of the Gilgo Beach case in 2020. That's why the district attorney, you've heard him say a little bit, the dysfunction that existed, right? So here they say Suffolk County Police Department. A poster lists personal details of 5 other women whose bodies were found near Gilgo Beach in 2010 and 2011. Okay. Former law enforcement officials aligned with Cini said that homicide detectives failed to perform basic investigative tasks to reduce the pool of potential suspects. Like they kept just chipping away and slowly but surely getting there, but not really like doing it, like just do it, focus, right? Which is why the police commissioner, Harrison, when he came in, he's like, right, you're not going to be catching cases out there. Some of you are assigned only to this case. So we went over what his strategy was to get the focus redirected, to get the case moving, to get the FBI on board. I think he did such a good job. Okay, so we continue on. One former official said that when prosecutors pushed the homicide squad to produce long-requested dossiers on the residents in the area where they were focused, the detectives gave them a couple of recent printouts from a law enforcement search program. I was like, are you serious? That official said, what have you done? The detectives didn't take kindly to being told how to investigate, another former law enforcement official said. Their philosophy was they investigate and we prosecute, and they kind of wanted to keep it that way. For their part, homicide detectives considered Cini and Master to be micromanagers, demanding weekly meetings and constantly hectoring them to investigate people that they'd already ruled out. And led by Portela, some didn't trust the narrowed down area where Cine directed them to focus, wanting to investigate suspects outside of it. Multiple law enforcement sources said that one of the disagreements arose over the former police officer in Massapequa Park, whom they said the prosecutor's office considered a top suspect, even as homicide detectives were confident that he was not. Cine declined to comment on that person specifically, but said that of course there were a number of people of interest who fit our profile, whom we wanted worked up from an investigative standpoint. Now remember, if you go back to the interview we just listened to with Nikki, who apparently went on a date with Rex in 2015 in the summer, she was saying that he said, well, a cop could do it. Oh man, imagine if he actually knew this cop and worked with the cop. If that's, I don't know, they're saying he's the sole suspect in the Gilgo 4 case, but like, man, imagine those other bodies and things. You just don't know. Who's this other suspect, right? Okay, so they say Cine declined to comment on that person specifically, but said that of course there were a number of people of interest who fit our profile, whom we wanted worked up from an investigative standpoint. At no point was I or any senior member of my team fixated on any particular suspect to the exclusion of others. Cine said that his attempts to remove Portela came to a head in 2021 when he was informed by Suffolk police brass that the FBI was not going to invest more resources into the case if Portela remained on. Law enforcement officials said that a homicide supervisor finally removed Portela after the supervisor was threatened with demotion by his own higher-ups. Okay, long-awaited arrest. We're almost there now. The break that led to Heurmann's arrest came quickly after Tierney took office last year. He assigned a task force from 4 law enforcement agencies who conducted a comprehensive review of every item of evidence and information in this investigation, according to the bail application. During that review, a New York State trooper found the detail. Well done to that New York State trooper. Okay, found the detail about the Chevy Avalanche. A secretive flurry of investigation followed over the next 16 months, strengthening the case against Heurmann before he was arrested. There's plenty of work yet to be done. The 4th Gilgo Beach murder, in which Heurmann is a suspect but not yet charged, a potential trial, in which Tierney plans to be the lead prosecutor, and 6 more unsolved murders which may not be linked to Heurmann. Police have indicated that they do not believe Gilbert's death was a homicide. Interesting. RDW, welcome to Grizzly supporter. Okay, and so, but on Long Island, blame shifting has erupted over the case's past delays, while top county officials continue to clash. Those aligned with the prosecutors and police have faulted the other for failing to close the case sooner. A former law enforcement official posited that if the detectives had backgrounded each person of interest under Cine as they were asked, Heurmann could have been caught years earlier. But 2 current law enforcement officials with direct knowledge of the case against Heurmann said that investigative findings from Cine's tenure played no significant role in finding him. I wonder. It just shows they were so close. They just needed that, as we would say in South Africa, they needed that vuma. Vuma is like, come on, apply some throttle there. Just like they need that passion, that determination. You know? So I'm glad they got that. Okay, so they said the case against Heurmann consisted of the old witness statements leading them to him, which is from 2010. Amberlynn Costello's roommate, oh my word. Okay, that was such a significant critical piece that, so old witness statements leading them to him, the FBI cell data analysis completed in 2012, and investigative steps such as mitochondrial DNA comparison performed using hair investigators had for more than a decade, taken after the new administration zeroed in. I do not know how the law enforcement personnel who earned the credit of solving this case used the work we did, Cine responded. I'm just thrilled that the case has been solved. He had previously touted his administration's work as vital, saying that a real key ingredient to the success of this case throughout the years was the collaboration between the Suffolk County Police Department and the Suffolk County DA's office. Even the announcement of Heurmann's arrest, a jubilant moment for public officials on the island, was indicative of simmering tensions. Tierney's office worried for months about tipping off Heurmann, especially after Cine gave an interview in January detailing his administration's use of cell site data. And we saw that Rexy, he was Googling about this, like, oh man, are they going to crack the case with this new cell site data or what? So if you missed that, just check out the episode where we read through the whole probable cause affidavit. Okay, so this is like article time. It's not quite document time. It's long article time. Hope you're enjoying it with me here. So, So there was an interview given. Oh, damn. They were worried that Rex Heuermann would be tipped off. Tierney's office responded by sending out letters to dozens of former law enforcement officials in the case, including Sunny, ordering them not to discuss confidential information. 2 law enforcement officials involved in the case said task force members were also under strict orders not to share information with Steve Bellone, a long-time county executive who previously appointed Burke, the later convicted police chief. It was believed by members of the task force that if he would learn about the investigation, he would seek to get publicity out of it at the expense of catching a serial killer. One of those law enforcement officials said of Bellone. Instead, they said the top elected official in the county was told about Heuermann's impending arrest on July 13th, the night the architect was quietly taken into custody near his office in Manhattan. If you missed that video where we saw how he got arrested, check it out as well on the playlist. Tierney planned to announce the indictment the following afternoon at a news conference at the DA's office. Because Tierney said he didn't want to mix politics with law enforcement, according to the officials, no politicians were invited. Bellone beat him to it. The morning after the arrest, he had his own lectern set up in front of Heuermann's ramshackle house in Massapequa Park. Joined by Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison, Bellone heralded the arrest and assured residents that we have never stopped working on this case. This is hectic. This is like we're spilling the tea over here, you know? Like, what happened here? Damn. In law enforcement circles, criticism flew that Bellone was attempting to upstage Tierney, but Bellone told the Post that as news began to leak about the arrest, bringing a crowd to the house already swamped with police, he arranged the news conference out of an obligation to inform the public, not to grandstand. There was not anything remotely political in my remarks, Bellone said, and that's an absurd suggestion. Okay. Is it absurd? I don't know. It sounds a little bit like you wanted to be there, sir. We will give you the benefit of the doubt, though, okay? Thank you for speaking to the people and for that press conference. Damn. So, that's it for today. My word, we've been here for a while, huh? Almost 2 hours. Thank you so much, mods. I really appreciate everything you do. I hope that this was an informative episode. I think it was pretty jam-packed with information. Everything, the audio sources and everything from today's episode are linked in the description box, as well as the article and everything for you. So you can go read it yourself if you want to again. You can go and watch those episodes, the actual videos with, Joe, Giacalone, and Josh. That was just audio, really. They had like a picture over it. But if you want to watch Anjanette Levy's episode with Nikki, that is on Law and Crime, and it's sidebar, linked in the description for you. And I will do timestamps for you now, as I always do. So thank you so much. Welcome to all the new members. Welcome to all the existing members. I know we are due for a members-only stream again soon. We will have one again soon. It's just like, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to do? We'll find something, okay? So we'll check it out. And yeah, Pinche says John Kelly dropped a video today. Yes, I did see that, and I do talk to him every week. So thank you so much. I like John Kelly. I'm going to go check that out. It's on the Rachel Morin case. So we shall see, and maybe he'll come here to talk to us a little bit. I'm going to go check it out now, and then I'm going to do timestamps. Thank you so much for being with me, especially if you're with me for the 2 streams today. If you missed the one right before this, that was about the Naomi Irion case. There was a huge update there where they showed a whole bunch of video surveillance evidence and broke down the timeline for us of exactly what happened. So sending love to Naomi Irion's family and friends. It's very sad and very shocking. So go check that out if you missed that update as well. And says, awesome update, Grizzly to Crime. As always, thanks for all your work, and thanks to all in chat for interesting thoughts, and thanks to hardworking mods. You'll be safe out there. Also, let me thank everyone who supported the channel with a sticker today. Thank you to everyone buying coffee, sending PayPals, and all those wonderful things. It's all on grizzlytruecrime.com. It's under the support page, as well as everybody who's buying the mods coffees. I really appreciate it so much. Thank you for buying the mods coffees. It's under a different little button there. It's the mod tip jar. Okay, and Nightbot's been sharing it with you every 15 minutes or so. I will miss you guys. I might see you tomorrow. I'll see you again soon. I know we've still got lots to discuss, as always. And stay safe. Above all, stay safe, okay? Okay, bye.